It's 5:12 a.m. and the city is still dark when your phone buzzes against the nightstand. Not the personal phone. The other one. The one with no name attached to it, no carrier record, no history. The one that only rings when something has already gone wrong. You stare at the ceiling for exactly 2 seconds. Then you answer. The voice on the other end belongs to a man named Cruel, not his real name. Nobody uses real names, and he tells you that the insulin shipment out of Monterey got intercepted at the northern checkpoint. 48 hours of supply. Gone. You already know what that means. There are 11 clinics in this city that don't appear on any government registry. They operate out of converted storefronts, back rooms, and one former church basement that smells like bleach and old wood. They serve roughly 4,000 people who cannot afford, or cannot access, the official system. Without that shipment, people start rationing by tomorrow night. By Thursday, someone dies. You sit up. You say 3 words, "Find me alternatives." Then you end the call. This is not a crisis. This is Tuesday. You didn't build this network because you wanted power. That's the version of yourself you've worked hard to maintain, and most days you still believe it. You built it because you grew up in the Distrito Sur, in a neighborhood where the pharmacy closed before you turned 8 and the nearest hospital was 40 minutes away by bus, if the buses were running, which they often weren't. You watched your mother manage a chronic condition with expired medication and prayer. You watched neighbors make impossible calculations: eat this week or treat the infection. Pay the landlord or buy the inhaler. So you learned the channels. You started small: medication, mostly. A contact in a warehouse. A driver who asked no questions. A woman named Petra who had a gift for paperwork that looked exactly like the real thing because it was real, just redirected. By the time you were 23, you were moving shipments across 3 districts. By 27, you had a network. By 30, you had a system. Now you run the infrastructure that a city of 2 million depends on and doesn't know exists. Your operation has layers. That's the first thing anyone needs to understand. You are not a drug lord. You are not a cartel. The word people would use, the word officials would use if they ever got close enough to use it, is smuggler. But that word is too small. Smugglers move product. You move a parallel economy. On any given week, your network handles pharmaceutical redistribution, food supply into neighborhoods bypassed by official logistics chains, black market fuel during government shortages, counterfeit documentation for people whose legal status makes them invisible to the formal system, and a financial layer: informal lending, currency exchange, wire transfers that don't touch the banking infrastructure, that keeps small businesses alive in districts where no bank will open a branch. You have 43 people you trust completely. You have another 200 you trust enough. You have relationships with port officials, customs brokers, 2 judges, 1 city council member who doesn't know your name but knows the envelope that arrives on the 1st of every month, and a colonel in the National Guard who owes you a debt that has nothing to do with money. You keep meticulous records, not digital, never digital. Ledgers, written in a shorthand only you can read, stored in 3 different locations. You trust no cloud. You trust no server. You trust paper and proximity. By 7 a.m. you're in a car, moving through the city before it fully wakes up. Your driver is a man called Cease, the 6th person you ever recruited. The name stuck. He's been with you 11 years. He doesn't speak unless spoken to, and even then, he's efficient. You like that about him. You're heading to a warehouse in the Eastern Port District. Your contact there, a logistics supervisor named Vargas, has been skimming. Not much, 2, maybe 3% off the top of incoming medical supply manifests. Small enough to avoid attention. Small enough that most operations would absorb it. But you don't run most operations. You run one where the margins matter, where 2% is the difference between a clinic having enough and a clinic running out. You've known about it for 6 weeks. You've been deciding what to do about it. When you walk in, Vargas sees your face and knows. He's not a violent man and neither, in most situations, are you. But you sit across from him in his office with the hum of refrigeration units in the background and you explain, very quietly, what 2% costs when you multiply it across a year, across 4 distribution points, across 4,000 patients. You put the number in front of him. You watch it land. You don't threaten him. You don't need to. You tell him that the amount he owes is already being deducted from his rate going forward, and that you need someone you can trust running this doc, and that the question you're asking yourself right now is whether that person is still him. He says yes. He says it quickly. You stand, button your jacket, and walk back to the car. You tell Cease to take you to the Distrito, sir. The insulin problem gets solved by noon. It always gets solved. There's a secondary supplier in the capital, a man who operates out of a medical equipment company that does just enough legitimate business to stay unremarkable. He can move 40% of the original shipment volume by tonight, the rest by Thursday morning. The cost is higher. You absorb it. The clinics don't pay more. You made that rule 7 years ago and you've never broken it. The network runs on a principle you've never written down anywhere but that everyone who works for you understands. The people at the bottom don't pay for the problems at the top. When something goes wrong, and something always goes wrong, the cost climbs upward. It never falls down. This is also what makes you different. And it is also, you understand, the reason people who could remove you haven't. Not yet, because you are, in some uncomfortable and unspoken way, necessary. There is a meeting you take every 2 weeks in a restaurant that has been closed to the public for 3 years. The owner keeps it operating on paper. You keep the owner comfortable. Around the table on alternating Wednesdays sit 4 people. A woman who runs informal housing networks across the western slums, a man who controls most of the gray market electronics supply coming in through the southern port, a former police captain who now manages security arrangements for all of you without technically doing anything illegal. He's very careful about that. And a young woman, early 30s, brilliant, who handles the financial architecture, the moving of money through informal channels and small businesses in patterns too distributed to track. Her name is Luz. She's the only one at that table you're genuinely afraid of. Not because she'd betray you, she wouldn't. Her entire family lives inside the network's protection, but because she understands the system better than you do now, and you both know it. At the last meeting, she put a document in front of you. Numbers, projections, a structural proposal. She wants to expand the financial layer. She wants to start offering something close to microinsurance, informal, cash-based, but structured. She says the demand is there. She says the infrastructure is already built. She says it's the next logical step. You looked at the document for a long time. Then you told her you'd think about it. You've been thinking about it for 11 days. The problem is not the idea. The idea is sound. The problem is what it means. Every expansion of the network is also an expansion of your exposure. Every new service is a new surface that can be found, traced, or flipped. And there's something else, something you don't say out loud but that sits in you like a stone. The bigger this becomes, the harder it is to call it what you've always called it. Necessity. Survival infrastructure. A gap you filled. At some point, gaps don't just get filled. They become systems. And systems don't stop. You think about your mother, managing her condition with whatever she could get. You think about the 4,000 people those clinics serve. You think about Vargas this morning, and the look on his face when you put the number in front of him. You think about what this city looks like without the layer you run, the gaps in medication, in food, in shelter, in financial access, and you think about the official systems that were supposed to cover those gaps and didn't, and still don't, and show no sign of ever doing it. You have not become something else. That's what you tell yourself. You are still the same person. It's past midnight when the second call comes. Different phone this time. This one has a number you recognize, one of the 2 judges. His voice is flat, controlled, which means he's scared. He tells you that there's a federal task force. That it has a name. That the name is not public yet. That it has been operational for 4 months and that its primary focus is on what they're calling parallel economic infrastructure in cities matching your city's profile. He says your name has not come up yet. Yet, you stand at your window and look out at the city spread below you, the lights, the movement, the quiet machinery of a place that never fully sleeps. Somewhere out there, 43 clinics and food depots and informal lenders are running on the architecture you built. Somewhere out there, A family that can't access the official system is getting medication they couldn't otherwise afford because of a channel you opened and a driver you trusted and a warehouse supervisor who skims 2% and still shows up. And somewhere out there, a task force with a name you don't yet know is building a file. You don't panic. Panic is a luxury you gave up years ago. You think, you calculate, you begin, in the silence of your apartment, to run the contingencies, who knows what, who can be moved, what can be restructured, what can be made to disappear. But there is one thought that keeps interrupting the calculation. One thing that keeps surfacing no matter how many times you push it down. You could walk away, you stand at the window a little longer. Then you pick up the third phone, the one only Luz has the number for, and you type 2 words. We expand. You set the phone down on the glass and watch the city breathe. It needs you, and that, you realize, is exactly the problem.